This game is incredible. Freedom Planet 2 released April 4th, 2024 for the Nintendo Switch. It was developed by Galaxy Trail. The download comes in around 1.3 gigs and it should take roughly 10 to 15 hours to work your way through the game. Now, at first glance, it would be easy to write it off as nothing more than a Sonic clone, but let me assure you that this game is so much more than that. While yes, it does share the same pixelated graphics and high-speed action that you would find in those games, simply writing it off as nothing more than a clone would be doing yourself a huge disservice. Welcome everyone, I'm JP and today I'll be giving you my review for the game here on the Switch. The story picks up 3 years after the events of the first game, and we once again join Team Lilac to save the land of Avalice from a new threat. Murga, an ancient water dragon, has escaped her crystal prison and kidnapped the mayor. Of course, our three main characters from the original return here for the sequel, with one new member, Neera the Frost Knight, joining the team. She was actually a boss in the first game, and so watching her journey from villain to ally has been pretty interesting, and she's actually who I chose to play with for my first playthrough of the game. Now, while the games are linked together, if you've not played the first one, you can still jump in here with part 2, although you will miss some of the jokes or references early on. The story segments are voice acted, and I have to give credit to the actors behind the scenes. They did a great job of bringing the characters to life, adding a layer of immersion and depth to the overall experience. Each of the 4 playable characters have their own special attacks and mobility options, and you're now given a shield and parry button to help mitigate some damage or avoid it altogether. Getting the timing down can take a while, but depending on the difficulty you have the game set to, it can be the difference between life and death. You do have the option to play in easy mode or hard mode, in addition to the standard difficulty, so the game should be accessible to anyone, regardless of your prior experience or skill level coming in. And if hard mode isn't challenging enough, you can also buy items with in-game currency to modify the gameplay, and these can be things like having less health or taking more damage from the enemies. If you enjoy video game punishment, I can imagine you'll appreciate having them as an option. As for the gameplay, the same chaotic, fast-paced action platforming from the original makes a return here with the sequel, as does the wonderful combat, which has been improved in almost every aspect. You see, the characters have been training since the end of the first game, and so they've mastered a few new techniques. And this is actually one of the areas where the game sets itself apart from the games that inspired it. You aren't just jumping into things causing them to explode. You have full-blown combat with melee and ranged attacks, and with each of them having their own unique special attack and playstyle, there's good reason to play through the game a few times. Or you can just practice with each of them in one of the other game modes that you'll have available to you, such as the all-new Boss Rush mode. However you do play though, the controls are great, they feel responsive, jumping has just enough weight to it that it doesn't feel too floaty, and there's no input lag or dips in frame rate, at least from my experience. So overall, I was very happy with the performance here on the Switch. The game has 24 beautifully crafted stages, and almost all of them have an epic boss battle waiting for you at the end, and they have several different paths that you can take, and while the temptation might be to rush through each one, you are rewarded for taking your time and exploring a bit, as each of the levels has a few hidden collectibles within them. Now, I found myself excited to see what the boss battles would be at the end of each level. They were absolutely a highlight for me. They're creative and unique, and figuring out how to defeat each one was a lot of fun. Some of them can pose a bit of a challenge at times, but one of the new features here with part 2 is the revive system. When you die, you're given the option to go back to your last checkpoint, or you can revive on the spot with a limited amount of health in order to try to edge out the victory against a tough boss. All of the levels are connected through a world map with different areas or towns and hubs that you can explore, and the hub areas typically have important NPCs to talk to or merchants that you can trade with, and a lot of the quests that push the story forward can be found in these areas as well. The pixelated art style and beautiful animations return for part 2 with even more detail this time around, and the colors pop right off the screen. Whether it's during the actual gameplay or a cutscene, the animation is top tier, the emotions come through on the faces of each of the characters, and you can feel the passion that went into developing the game. I mean, it oozes out at every second while you play. Each level has a unique theme, and the creativity is on full display all the way through, and they all introduce new sets of enemies or hazards, and everything is brought to life with meticulous attention to detail. As for the sound design, it's one of my favorite aspects of the game. They crafted over 100 individual songs, and each level has its own track. They all fit the tone of the level perfectly and set the tone for each cutscene as well. On top of that, every boss has its own dedicated music, and it's just absolutely outstanding work all around. Bravo to Galaxy Trail for what they were able to pull off in the sound department. Here, have a listen to a couple of the tracks and see for yourself what I mean. Incredible, right? Alright, that brings me to the value aspect of Freedom Planet 2. It's priced at $24.99, which is a bit steep for an indie game. I would completely understand if you just don't feel like spending $25 on an indie game is reasonable. With that said though, you are getting more than 10 hours of gameplay, and you can play as multiple characters, which will of course encourage multiple playthroughs. You have a fully voice-acted story with a strong narrative and impressive set pieces. Overall, the quality put into every aspect of the game is top tier, and so I feel like the price tag is justified when you consider everything that you get. At 10 hours, you're only spending about $2.50 per hour of entertainment, so to me you could definitely do worse, no question. I'd say it's well worth the asking price, all things considered. So to wrap up and put a score on it, I would give Freedom Planet 2 here on the Switch a resounding 9 out of 10. I think the level of passion that the devs put into every aspect of the game shines through. It offers so much more than you might expect at first glance. And with that said, I'd like to thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know down below. And if you'd like to check out another review from us here on the channel, you can watch this video next. Take care, everyone.
Super Retro Force.